Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and today we're going to talk about the real estate bubble, whether it's bursting, if it is, what effect it's going to have on you, and what opportunities are available. So I'm just going to dive in and do a kind of a 10,000-foot view, and then I'll give you some specific action items. So number one, I'm an avid real estate investor, been at this for 25 years now. I remember when the tech bubble burst in early 2000s, the effect it had. I remember 2005, 6, and 7 leading up into the big crash and the Great Recession, even the COVID, when people were like, the real estate market's crashing, the real estate market's crashing. And what I try to do is I try to look at the data that exists at the time to see whether there's anything that's going to be kind of an indicator. One thing that I noticed is that anytime you have housing prices outpacing rents, in other words, housing prices are going up here. So I'll kind of use what the graph actually looks like. We use a ratio between what the median home price is versus its rental value. In other words, what would that home rent for? And you just kind of compare them. And it actually graphs out really nice. It's one of those things I like to do is kind of nerd out. And what you see is that in 2005 and 6, right before this, let's just say that this is 2005 to 2008, you saw this big run up right before it went cascading down. So this is probably 2007, late 2007, right before it popped. What was happening was the home prices were outpacing rents. In other words, if I can't afford my house, can I rent it to anybody? Seems pretty logical, right? So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is there demand? If so, what is that demand and how much value does what I have is it will it get? So I'll use an example of here in Vegas. That's where I live. In 2007, you could buy a house for $1 million in the Anthem area. I'm just going to use an example. Madeira Club at Madeira. I remember those names. The country club, Anthem Country Clubs, a bunch of those types of things. Summerlin wasn't a big thing yet, but you could go out and you could get that thing for $1 million. You're in that, and great. That same neighborhood, that home would rent for $3,000 a month. So you could buy it for $1 million and rent it for 3,000. If you're a math guy or a math gal, you just go and look at it and say, okay, that sounds like 3,000. That's $36,000 a year, 3.6%. And if you've watched me before, you know that I use the rule of 5%. If I could rent a home for gross rental for 5% or less, I'm better off renting it than buying it. And so in that particular case, it's pretty obvious. You're better off renting than buying. In other words, the rents did not keep up with the value of the home. Now, I bring that up because when there's a recession or when there's a pullback or when the market starts to correct, if somebody cannot keep their home because of economic forces, interest rates are going up, which I'll hit on this in a second. In 2007, for example, we had 30% of the homes had like these adjustable rate mortgages. It was a really high number. So as interest rates went up, holy kashmoli, people were just getting hammered. In other words, they were getting their mortgages at insanely low rates for a period of years, sometimes 2, 3 years, sometimes 5, whatever it was. And then it would adjust, sometimes even less, right? And then it would adjust and it would go to whatever the whatever the interest rate really should have been in the first place. So I get in there and I get like a 2% interest rate, but it's really 5. My mortgage literally doubles. It was even higher. So people were losing their homes. And it was a soft rental market. It just meant that, hey, I can't rent the house and cover my payment. I'm not even going to come close. I'm paying more in interest than I could generate in rent, and that's without repairs, property taxes, all this other stuff too. When you have gross rents, landlords know you get to keep about half of it. So again, let's go back to our $1 million example. $1 million house, I can rent it for $3,000 a month. I'm going to get about $18,000 a year off of that home. If I'm paying 5% and I'm doing these no money down BS loans that they were doing at the time, I'm paying interest, just interest of about $50,000 a year. Like I'm not even close. Now let's look at today. About 5% of the loans have adjustable interest rates. And then even more importantly, we don't have any supply. Like we are really low in supply. And when I say low in supply, if you've been following me, you know I've been screaming about this the last 5 or 6 years. We are underbuilt in this country. We are not keeping up with the houses that fall out of service. You need to have new builds and taking houses that have been out of service and put them back into service. We need about 1.7 million homes a year being put into action to keep up. Just to kind of the break even. We're at like 1.5, 1.6. What do you think is happening right now? Oh, the real estate market's going to burst. Oh, they're raising interest rates. So what are builders doing? They have had supply chain issues, so they couldn't build. Like it's delayed, everything's delayed. Now they're not even going to start. We are probably 3 million units behind right now in this country. We had real estate prices jump 30% average across the United States last year. Rents went up 14.1%. Now, those of you guys who are paying attention say, wait a second, home prices are outpacing rents. Exactly. Right now, this graph, you go la 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 la. We're probably right about here. We have a ways to go before you look at a correction and you see it drop. And it's not even like it's more like it's kind of going this direction. It's working its way up. In other words, rents go up, prices go up a little bit. Rents go up, prices go up. We're not so out of whack that you couldn't rent your house because there's just not a lot of properties. Here in my neck of the woods, you cannot get a rental property. People are really struggling to find homes. People list them. I have lots of clients who are in this space, and they're like, it's ridiculous. You put up a 1 or 2 bedroom property, and it's like 20 applications the day you list it. It's really, really hot. And that's the rental market. I'm not talking about home sales. People are saying, well, the market's softening. Yes, it is. It was white hot. But this is like a 747 cruising up, and it's on a steep incline. You're taking off. And you've been doing that a while. Wow, we're on a steep incline. And then it starts to level out. Okay, we're still cruising at 30,000 feet. We're not falling out of the sky, guys. People are going to say, it's going to burst. It's going to burst. They're just causing action. And in some cases, inaction. Let's talk about both of those. Somebody who's freaked out. Oh my gosh, it's going to burst and I have some equity. I don't know what to do. I might sell. Okay, you're going to have a fair amount of those. Okay, I want to try to get out at the top of the market. Okay, what's that going to do? It's going to cause more homes to list, right? And then there's the opposite. Oh, nobody's buying houses. I'm just going to stay in my home. I had hoped to find another home, but let's wait for the market to crash and pull back a little bit, and then I'll come in. And here's the punchline: it might pull back slightly. It might cool down. Nobody has a crystal ball, including me. The numbers don't back up a crash. What we have for sure is affordability issues right now. We have affordability issues in rentals, and we have affordability with mortgage properties. We do not have affordability issues with cash. People who are buying for cash don't care about the mortgage. What they do care about is what's my return on my investment, or they may just be saying, hey, I sold a property. I just want to buy something to live in, and I don't really care. And again, I'm in Vegas, and all these California folks who had massive appreciation, and they're like, hey, I can sell my house here, my 3,000 square foot house here. I'm going to get 2 million for it, and I can come buy the same thing in Vegas for $1 million. And I'm just throwing numbers out there. That's probably pretty accurate, though. We've seen 30% plus growth year over year in Vegas. It's crazy, right? So now everybody's saying it's going to slow down, it's going to slow down, it's going to crash. Two very different things. Slow down, I get it. It means that it's going to be harder to sell because people are testing the higher. Like we had this white hot market that was going up. In order to go up, you had to price your houses even higher. So everybody's rate. We're talking, what would that be? About 3% a month that we were growing, and so they were pricing everything too high. So when I'm putting something in the market, and if I'm looking at this trajectory, I'm pricing it up here. So now I list it here, and it's not going to sell there because the price didn't go up; it's flattened out. So we're asking at altitude 35,000 when really the market's at 30,000. It's not crashing, it's not coming down, it's not. Ooh. But what it just means is that we don't know where that top is. Like the realtors want the highest, the sellers want the highest. The buyers are looking at it going, maybe if I hold off. But there's always this supply and demand issue. That's what it boils down to. In real estate, it's a little more complicated. Obviously, you have neighborhood by neighborhood. How good are the schools? If this is, a forever home for somebody, what's the crime like? Access to amenities, transportation, all those things come in and on the micro level. But on the macro level, you're looking at it going, right, here's this community, here's the median price, here's what things go for. And you're not going to see it go poof. Again, 2007, 2008, what we saw as a whole, like it wasn't even a huge percentage of foreclosures, but you just saw them roll up, and then money became almost impossible to get because the banks had been giving these, we call them liar loans, but they're not ninja loans, and there's no income verification. It's just basically they had no real backup. That does not exist now. Fed's actually going in, like they're pretty harsh on lenders because they didn't want it to happen again. So here's the other fact that you guys should know. The average American loan right now, a mortgage, the credit score is about 100% higher now on average than it was before the Great Recession, 2007, 2008. So the only reason I'm bringing those things up is because these things actually matter. We are not factually the same scenario. And you're going to hear people screaming about this because it gets clicks. It gets the headlines. A newspaper is not going to say, oh, the market may cool down a little bit instead of growing so dang fast. National Association of Realtors and lots of other organizations are still anticipating in 2022 that you're going to have an increase, and in 2023 an increase, albeit instead of 30%, it might be 4%, it might be 6%, but it's not a crash. And the reason that they're anticipating that is because there is no supply. And I'll just, it's not that there's no homes, it's that there are more people needing housing than there are properties. We are underbuilt to the tune of about 3 million units in the United States. The Harvard Joint Center for Housing, they do these studies, they literally just testified in front of Congress this last week saying moderate and low income people are being left in the dust. Because if you're a builder, everything's more expensive. You cannot build a home that's going to rent for $500 a unit, or a property where you can rent it for $400 or $500 a unit and make money. You can't. Everything's too expensive. Inflation is tearing people apart, right? So you're having to build more expensive units. Who does that hurt? Everybody that needs a property that they can rent for $600-700, $500, whatever it is, so that they're not getting torn apart and cost burdened from their housing. It is really, really bad when you look at it. Facts are real estate prices have gone up. Wages have not kept up. Rents are really high. Wages have not kept up with even rents. So what that means is people are paying more as a percentage of their pay for those items. It's being called cost burdened. Once you start getting around that 40% of your take home is going to housing, you're not in a happy place. 50% and you're suffering. It's really tough to make, to get by when you're looking at that. And I'll just give you guys a fact. Here in Las Vegas, for example, a one bedroom is averaging about $1,300 a month. One bedroom apartment. So just think about that. Somebody's working for, what is it, 20 bucks an hour, which, wages have gone up. But let's just say you're working for 20 bucks an hour and, a decent job. So you're making, what is that, $40,000 a year? Divide that up. You're talking, what would be your take home? Let's say maybe 2,500, 3,000, and you're having to pay $1,300 just in rent. Plus, you're going to have other expenses associated with that property. Plus, you're going to have to do food and transportation, everything else. There's not a lot of money left over, right? You're really struggling, if any money left over. And if you have kids, holy cow, you're in a bad spot. It's really, really tough. So people who think that this real estate market's going to turn around and crash, I would just caution you to say take a lot of that with a grain of salt. Talk to investors, talk to people who are looking at this and say there's some opportunities out there. And here's why. The reason that there's great opportunities is because there's so much need. Now, I personally believe if you are somebody in that space and you're somebody who's doing that likes doing rental properties and you work in that area, like, hey, I like cash flow properties. Me personally, I love single family residences. I like buying lots. I do have apartment buildings, do have mobile homes, and I think mobile homes are going to be huge too. Anything that we can do to get moderate and low income folks into reasonable rents, it's going to take us because institutions, big institutional investors, they can't take that risk on the low end. They have to make sure that they're hitting in the middle and above. And that's why the biggest growth areas, like, and this is, you can go look at this. I'd actually urge you to go look at the Harvard Joint Housing reports that they put out every year, Center for Joint Housing Center. But I would urge you to go look and just take a look at how much growth has taken place in families making over $75,000 a year. About 2/3 of the rentals have been, for the last 10 years, have been for that demographic, not for the below 75,000, not for everybody else. About a third of them have been for those folks, but they're a much larger percentage of society. So we've just left them behind. So as an individual investor, you can go solve that need and still make money. That's the fact of the matter, is that you could still go out there and say, I want to solve the need of low to moderate income housing. And I'll give you guys some ideas. I'm a tax attorney, so I could say you can literally do that activity as a nonprofit. If you want to pay zero tax and you want to get a huge tax deduction for investing in these properties, I could literally write off every dollar I put into something like that if I ran it as a charity. Or I could say, hey, I'm just going to keep it private. And if you know how real estate works, we could even accelerate depreciation and help make sure that you pay no tax on any of the rents or to offset other rental income you have. And then as these properties grow in value, because they're still going to grow in value, it's almost impossible to find in a major city, any stretch, like a major metropolitan area that has stable employment, isn't ravaged with crime, but is a normal city. It's almost impossible to find any where over a 10-year stretch they didn't appreciate. Even during this period of time when we were in 2007, 8, like even during the Great Recession, any 10-year stretch, just go look at it and say, what's the median price? Did it go up or down? It goes up. So if you buy those properties and you cater to those individuals, understand that you could still get tax-free money out of that thing, because at the end of the day, you can always borrow against your real estate to either buy more or to live off of, or go on vacation, whatever. You don't have to pay tax on that. All you have to do is, if you're going to sell it, you either buy more real estate under a 1031 exchange and avoid all taxes, all gains, depreciation, recapture is completely deferred, or you just never sell it. And then when you die, it steps up in basis and your heirs could sell it and pay no tax. You never had to pay tax even on the money that you borrowed out. So if you're an investor, there's some huge tax incentives to get you to do it. Me personally, I believe that as individual investors, we actually have a kind of a moral obligation. Let's make sure that we're taking care of the people that everybody else is not. And by the way, you can be handsomely rewarded for doing so. But that just tells me, all right, where are we going to focus? We're going to focus in areas that need housing, where there might be, good workforce, strong workforce, low unemployment, not horrible crime and things like that. And the housing hasn't jumped up so fast yet. Like, hey, you know what? We can go in there and we can actually still buy houses at 100,000, 150,000, get decent rents, make decent money. I like six caps and above, which, in English just means I'm making 6% on my money every year, or on the value of the home, because I could actually be leveraging that too and making a much higher percentage of cash on cash. But I can be going and doing that and getting appreciation and cash flow. And that's what we like. And there's tons of tax incentives. So you're going to hear again it always happens. The press loves to run with these things, and it's going to scream about busting bubbles and stuff, and it's going to defeat some people. They're just going to immediately say, "I'm not going to go look around. I'm going to wait, or I'm just going to exit, or this scares me, and I'm not going to do anything." Okay, just know that the facts don't care what they're saying, and that the facts realistically are that we're underbuilt. We're going to continue to be underbuilt because of what's going on right now, and the interest rates going up, and builders are tapering back on the applications to build new homes. So we're going to see a decrease. We're going to continue to not meet the demand, which just means that demand is going to continue to back up and get bigger and bigger, which is going to do what? Everybody knows. You have increased demand and not enough supply. It's going to push prices up just naturally, no matter what's going on. Like, we could raise interest rates, everything else. Cash doesn't care. What cash will do is buy and rent. And especially if people can't go out and afford a home to buy, guess where they're going to go? Well, now they have to rent. So if you're an investor, this is a great time. There's going to be tons of opportunities. Just don't listen to all the hype. Focus in on the facts. Hey guys, if you like this type of information, please share it with others. Please subscribe. Click that little bell, and it lets you know when I put out new videos. Most of my stuff focuses on asset protection and tax, but I do like to talk about these areas because I think it's really important to my clients and people as a whole, and as human beings, that we should actually be trying to address some of these things so that it doesn't become a huge crisis. We already know that we have bad homelessness. Let's make sure that it doesn't get exacerbated, and that we try to address some of the non-equitable arrangements that are going on in this country of ours, and that we are looking at, hey, there's great opportunities, but I can solve an issue and still be rewarded. Thanks, guys.